All right, almost done, and we can move on to Gears of War Judgment after.
You know, okay, I'll just say it right now. Even if we didn't have the best experience with this campaign, I don't want anyone thinking that we're ending this game with, a negative perception of the game, because the game as a whole is still pretty great. And like I said, considering the time that this DLC campaign was made, it was better put together than like the majority of DLC campaigns back in the day. I'll give it that.
Well, there are credits in this, so we can say that for the final thoughts, Jova.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm just setting the record straight, seeing as how we have had a bit of a downer stigma for this DLC campaign.
The base game
that's not just
Children's School of Hope.
There is no hope.
There you are. There you are. He looks like
Uncle Remus?
Yeah, he looks like Uncle Remus, doesn't he? I was about to say that as well.
Is that character off of
Song of the South? Yes. Zippity doo dee da da.
Yes, that song still gets remixed.
Hey,
to this day.
The boss came back for this.
I'm still in this game, by the way.
Oh! You gotta love it.
Timing.
You gotta love it. The guard whose face we can't see immediately gets killed and shot.
So now we
So now we get a bunch of failed Marcus. So basically, we have a bunch of failed Marcus clones going up against a failed Marcus clone.
Well, I failed to realize how Raam is a Marcus clone.
Oh snap! Raam's about to kill Jace.
Raam is
he's gruff and serious and doesn't care about anything.
But Marcus cares but that description doesn't apply to Marcus at all.
Well, Pedro, in the first game he wasn't like that.
Anyway, at least he's dead, by the way.
Not really.
Just like that.
Whatever.
They even killed like in gameplay or something. Oh, and
at least they don't die off. At least they don't die off screen.
Well, I think there's a missed opportunity here. How cool would it have been, but for the final section, your Raam.
Oh no, guys! Alicia died. Alicia died. How will I ever cope?
That's what I was saying. Like, it would have been much more cool and also integrated gameplay with the story. You're the villain beating the shit out of the guy with your control.
She's so
seriously.
Go ahead, Lips.
I mean, seriously, her death was as impactful as those NPCs that die in the beginning of Final Fantasy X, i.e., not.
Exactly.
Also, JC is apparently very versatile with handling a gun.
Sure, because we have to establish that he's going to become a gear in the future too.
That's the thing. Those guns are specifically designed for people with armor and everything. JC's a scrawny kid.
Guys, I just want to point out a weird thing. I know it's a nitpick, but let's consider this. See, this takes place right before the first game begins, right?
No, well, not really.
It's like
a bit before. That's the point.
Well, but when E-Day actually happened, Jova, remember this was back when.
I know. Basically, essentially, though, this is the past.
Yeah,
connected
the past.
to the first game.
Yeah, a couple years before, around there. I'm not a Gears of War expert. Keep that in mind. Somebody in the comics. Sorry, in the comics.
The wiki. Go
someone in the comments, please.
The point being is that, this means that at some point the weapons ammunition changed from 420 to a higher number for the first game, and then went back to a lower number later. Technically, technology was weird.
No, I got an explanation.
Gameplay story segregation.
No, I have an explanation.
Go ahead.
Go on.
Well, these troops need some degree of funding, right?
Well, obviously, yeah.
And well, since the world fell into chaos, there was no one around to claim any unearned lottery money. So they went to the lottery vault, stole the money, and used that to fund their troops. Unfortunately, there were so many troops, they ran out of that money so quickly that by the time of Gears 3, they only had enough to. They had barely enough to make less ammo than they had to start with.
So what you're saying is that they started with less, but then won the lottery, so that's where they got their surplus from. But then the surplus ran out.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. It's the time of the campaign this takes place is 9 AE, i.e. 9 years after Emergency Day.
Okay. Then.
Let me check exactly what's the instead for the first game, just to compare.
I really wish the game would have been specific with its time thing, because remember, at the beginning of this campaign, it said shortly after AE. Okay, in the grand scheme of the timeline, yeah, 9 years is a short time when you encompass the entire timeline of the franchise, obviously. But I don't know. I kind of wish the little subtitle at the beginning would have been more specific. But whatever. Go ahead.
Gears 1 is 14 AE, aka this DLC takes place 5 years before the original game.
Yeah. So basically, a couple of years, like I said. Yeah, I was about on the money. Yeah.
So I guess you could
Also-
say that General Raam killing Commander Kim was sort of him trying to finish the job.
Pretty much, he was finishing the job here, I guess.
It's more so than the gist, Dibs, that I see Marcus as a guy who's, of course, the rough. Look, he's kind of like Stallone's character in the Expendables franchise. You know, like he's a gruff, tough weapon dude, but deep down, he's also a very sentimental, kind-hearted person. You know.
Simply put, Dweebs, in a situation like war, you have to actually shield your feelings from some situations.
Whereas Raam actually is indeed just a general who's basically a gigantic killing machine.
Which
in a
again
sense,
reflects
you
the
could say
nature, the weird animalistic with minor intelligence nature of the Locust. Yes, we do possess some degree of conscience and intelligence, but we're just content in chaos and destruction with no real insanity or reason behind it.
Actually, from what I've read of Rise of Raam, it's actually an interesting insight into the culture of the Locusts here. Some are definitely smarter than others. Raam is apparently sort of an interesting case. But let's just say he kind of knows a bit more than he lets on, mind you. Which is sort of how he eventually came to rise to power.
Hey, Coalition, wanna, make some kind of prequel game chronicling those stories? Just saying.
If there is anything that I will say maybe the main game could have expanded on is actually the local society, how they reproduce, do we have city, do we have civilians,
Theo, Gears 5. I don't think you're gonna like it, but it does it.
well, it's. I forgot if I mentioned this already for another product. I definitely know I will. I definitely know I did ask it, said it, but I forgot for which specific occasion. I'll take a terrible answer in your place of no answer at all.
Sure. I understand that.
Well, here, to be fair, a lot of people know who Will.i.am is, considering he's like...
Yes, he was just me badly speaking. Ignore
I think he's like the only person from Black Eyed Peas that people would instantly think of when you say Black Eyed Peas.
Yeah, I understand.
Well, back in the day, Dweebs, I actually did remember the other members of the band's names, but now I actually forgot aside from Will.i.am.
Pedro, I'm curious, which do you prefer? No answer or an ungodly terrible answer?
That's the thing, Jova. I think each case is a case. It depends on how terrible the answer is to me. Because sometimes an answer will piss me off so much that in hindsight I would have preferred not to get that answer at all. For example. Well, I can't say that because it's a bit too topical for right now. But you know that one sequel that's about to come out at the time of this recording where I wish I wouldn't have gotten that answer. You know what? You know the one.
Oh God!
It starts with an L. You know which one I'm talking about. Let's move on. I don't want to go into
No,
tangents.
I actually don't.
Instead, can you explain me this gameplay mechanic? These enemies covered in shadows.
It's the Kryll tale. Remember how the Kryll work from the first game?
Yes, but not in the fact that they buffed the enemies like they said.
Okay, let me explain that. Yeah, okay.
I can come up. I can think of an example that isn't really spoilery for Jova.
Well, then let me explain this for Theo first, though. Oh, hold on. Let me explain this to Theo. He asked first. Okay. So basically, Theo, the Kryll, much like with Raam, the Kryll can basically can only become armor, which will make a lot of these locusts hard to kill. However, as you know, the Kryll don't like light. So as long as you're in some kind of light source, you should be fine. However, yeah, sometimes they will have these strikes. Like, so basically.
Oh wait, never mind. I get it. I get the sequel you're talking about now.
Okay then. I was about to text you, but then there you go. Yeah. You were asking. Sorry, you were gonna say that.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, if you wanted an example that didn't involve Jovi, you've seen. You said you've seen Kingsman 2, right?
Yes,
Oh,
I have not
God.
yet seen Kingsman 1 yet.
Well, one question I always had in my mind was, okay, I know they're gonna address, what happened to a certain character in the first movie, a bit more in this one to continue the story.
Bubble
I
wrap.
didn't like what the answer was.
Bubble wrap.
Okay, might as well go with that question again,
Literally
Dwibs. So, in hindsight, Dwibs, would you have preferred not to get that second movie then?
No.
Well, Pedro, but again, that bit wasn't the only problem Kingsman 2 had.
Well, I know.
But,
Okay, let me rephrase that. What I mean.
Okay, I think the better question would be: would you have preferred an answer as to why
Oh,
that character
no.
is alive, rather than the answer you got?
Well, I'd rather he not be alive at all.
It's because.
Well, okay. Ignoring that though, would you have preferred there be the silly answer that there was, or there be no answer at all?
No
Like
answer,
a
because
question left hanging.
it's not some.
I know Kingsman was never this super realistic series to begin with, but there is such a thing called internal logic. I mean,
Yeah.
the
Are you
first
saying that
movie
you
esta-
don't?
The first,
Sorry.
the first movie established that people die, and once they're dead, they stay dead. But the second movie, it's like, oh no, you can fix holes in your brain with a magical bag.
Bubble wrap, like I said.
I mean, hell, there's a character in the second movie that gets blown to bits in the second one, but I'm like, no, I'm sorry, I don't buy you're gonna keep him dead. By Kingsman 4, you're gonna fix him together with a giant sewing machine.
Okay.
Not to mention-
Okay.
go
Okay.
ahead.
Now, to be fair, that character gets blown into pieces, whereas the characters brought back with the magical bubble wrap, they're mainly kind of shot in the head. The body is still, for the most part, intact here and there.
Would you be surprised though, Jova, if they did that?
Not to mention
I don't
Jova.
know.
Not to mention Jova. Unlike the examples that Theo was thinking, this is not like a mystery that really makes you want an answer or anything. The character in the first movie that Dwibs was describing had a satisfying, meaningful death in the first movie. And there was no need to bring him back. What happened was they brought him back just because he was popular, and then they come up with the stupidest of reasons why he's now suddenly alive again. It's basically Shadow the Hedgehog again. Where we have to explain why Shadow is alive now.
Hold on. One at a time. Honestly, no. Shadows is fine enough. I can buy that he can survive a fall from Earth, seeing as how he survived his first fall from Earth in his flashback with Maria. So, if anything, I mean, it was never really clear up front, oh, he's dead or nothing. Because, again, he managed to survive the first time he fell when Maria sent him shooting down from the arc here and there. He was literally in super form when he fell. So, honestly, I wouldn't say that Shadow's death was ruined, because there was never really any clear death. Just he's falling down to Earth. Maybe we'll see him or not. And let's not forget, Adventure 2 was made in a time where everyone thought that was going to be the last Sonic game ever, so circumstances were different.
Oh,
to
Jesus.
say the least.
I think
In that case, Jova, the developer shouldn't have had Sonic literally say, and I quote, he gave his life to save his planet.
Oh, well, okay. Here's
Okay,
the thing. Here's the
gotta
thing.
be honest, Pedro. As someone who's detached mostly from Sonic, I can invite the fact that Sonic is a terrible judge of character in general for anything.
Not only that, but you gotta remember that there's a sake of dramatic iron wall there. Us, the players, we're more genre savvy, but as far as the characters know, he probably is dead. Let's not forget that the characters did not know that Shadow survived his first fall from the Earth. That was something only Shadow knew, and he got those memories back after Amy sort of triggered them in here.
All right,
so it's something that we, the players, know, but
all
not
right.
something that the
I will
characters
get.
know.
I don't really want to get into an argument about that, so I'll move on. Well, but that's not what I was talking about, Joe. I was talking about whether or not he should be alive or not. I'm talking about the fact that in order to explain why he's now alive, they had to create this incredibly stupid storyline in Shadow where now he's half alien. And it just comes across as ridiculous to me, sorry.
Connecting to this universe, I think the comparison would be if in Gears 6, I guess, ideally, they say that, oh no, Dom actually never died. He actually survived the explosion, went into hiding for no reason at all, and now he's just his usual.
Although I'd argue Kingsman 2 did it worse.
Anyway, going back to Shadow Hedgehog...
And I can back up my reading, actually, because... at least in Shadow, you could argue whether or not they were successful, but at least they tried some new stuff with Shadow in every playthrough that you did. Whereas in Kingsman 2, all we got from said character's revival were dumb rehashes of scenes from the first movie that were basically like, he's only half aware of stuff because he's blind in one eye. Ha ha ha.
Not only that, but in Shadow the Hedgehog, the whole him being half alien thing, that doesn't really have anything to do with how he survived. That's just looking into his origins. Like, that has nothing to do with how he survived. Like, how he survived, he just survived the fall, and Eggman found him. Like, that is pretty much literally just it.
You guys already know how I feel about when writers do this.
Again, like I said, it wasn't even really a clear death. So I wouldn't even say it really applies.
I'm not saying you have to agree with me. I'm just saying that I don't like it when a character has not necessarily a death, a fitting send-off that's meaningful and moving, and then we have to go back on that for whatever stupid reason the writer comes up with. I don't like that. But whatever, just as a principle. Go ahead.
Actually, more pressing matters. What are you supposed to do?
Well, right now we're trying to hold our own. Basically, we're being attacked at all fronts by Reavers.
And Raam is on his own steed, apparently.
Yes. So basically, right now we're trying our best to protect the children and Dr. Wizen, who are hidden. And well, actually, did they run away? I forgot.
I'm surprised.
Yes, I think they did run away.
I'm sorry. This story is so boring that I. Go ahead.
I'm surprised they didn't call this. I'm surprised they didn't call this chapter "Think of the Children" or something.
I swear to you, Theo. By the time I get to this point, I'm so beyond caring. Yeah. Basically, do your best to hold on your own. Eventually, Raam will fall from his ride, and we'll have to fight him straight.
Again, like I say, gameplay-wise, this still holds up fine, but if you're strictly in it for just the story, I can see how you would get bored.
There we go.
Oh no, of course, Joe, but the problem is, like, remember, one of the big appeals of this game, shit! A new storyline where we even get to play as Raam. That sounds really interesting, and it is not interesting at all. So it's disappointing,
There's also what I mentioned before. There's missed potential in here. Imagine if you control the squad for most of the time, and then at the not even necessarily the very last second, even with the sequences that you had before, at the tail end, instead you control Raam and your mission is to kill them, because that's what happens canonically. Yeah, that's actually great level game design potential.
That's the thing too. That's the thing too. As you're about to see, Alicia is the only one who dies here. Like the others don't.
Not even our protagonist.
No, they managed to escape alive. So at the end of the day, this entire storyline feels very useless, if you ask me.
To be fair, it kind of makes sense that most of them survive since that's how
Ty and Kim, Jace, I guess. Yes,
yeah, Ty and Jace have to survive, and Kim as well. Yeah.
The only other guy who wouldn't have to survive is this guy we're playing as, and I guess since he's the player character, they don't kill him. I'm just wondering why they don't have us play as like one of the actual familiar characters.
And even then, Alicia, like Dweb said, these characters dying have zero impact because the game did little to no effort in trying to get us to know them in any meaningful way.
I honestly forgot. I mean, take it with a grain of salt because I always do this, but I can't even I couldn't even remember her name until Pedro just said it.
Exactly. No, don't get us wrong, audience. I'm by no means saying that the Delta Squad were like these amazingly Kubrickian complex characters or anything like that. But they, at the end of the day, they were still really likable action heroes, which is basically what they're supposed to be. They had distinct personalities. They were incredibly distinguished from one another. There was no way you could mistake Dom for Baird because they're incredibly distinct from one another, and they were very fun because of the incredible dynamic that they had. These
and
characters,
the chemistry was some of the best too.
Then we get these new characters for this campaign, and they suck. I'm not saying they're like horrible, like oh my god, I hate these characters so much or anything like that, but they're so boring. They're so boring.
I can actually back you up with just one example that is corroborated for previous games. Remember how in Gears 2 we get to hear the fact that Tay is this super badass hero that has been basically a war beast that has managed to triumph over the Locust until that point.
Yes.
It's probably because it's not too far after E-Day, but we don't get to see much of it in this campaign where he's present. I don't think he has that many lines to begin with.
He has lines?
Okay, let me talk about one of the big mistakes that this DLC campaign made. Not having us play as one of the familiar characters, because in doing so, this guy is going to be the one who gets the most lines out of the bunch. Where, honestly, I don't really care that much about Mike. That's his name, I believe. It's like
Beardy, as Dweb so affectionately nicknamed him.
Well, that's his only defining trait, like I said.
Anyway, why not have us play as Tay or Kim? You know, the characters who go or more. Or heck, why not have us play as Jace for the sections he is? Like, see how he goes from being just a random civilian to being, well, a full-on Gears member. I mean, I guess technically we do get that out of here. And no, I'm going to say this. Officially now, Jace has more character than Mike or Alicia. If only because a transitioning character for him, and more him actually getting to do something that will matter in the grand scheme of this entire story.
Yeah, Joe, for a second there, I thought you were going to say Tails, and I was going to be like, wow, Sonic Force has got a lot darker than
Well, Baird is basically the Tails of this franchise. He's the tech guy. And he even becomes a scientist. And he even becomes a flat-out scientist with a lab coat and everything in the Coalition's games. Go ahead.
And honestly, I'm wondering if Epic Game Studios were ashamed of these characters, because from what I can gather, Alicia and Mike do not really show up in any other supplementary material.
No, like me and Pedro mentioned, there's like a photo memorial in 5, and they're like briefly mentioned by name.
Yeah,
as far as I know.
That's it. Not even comics. Okay. So essentially, Alicia gets the same treatment that Will Smith got in Independence Day Resurgence.
Resurgence.
I guess in this case, or you cannot even say the fact that Laura Bailey was not available anymore. Oh, here we go.
We're done. Yeah.
So, Joe, what are you talking about? Of course, Will Smith's in the movie. His picture.
So yeah, at the end of the day, what did we really accomplish with this?
We saved 2 people, I guess.
We saved Jay. Okay.
Some aliens.
That's the thing. Like Jova said, couldn't we actually play as Jace so Jace actually gets something to do in this bloody game?
Like I said, I think the problems with this game, this DLC campaign, start with us playing as just Mike, the baldy guy here. Like, again, why not have us play as Tay and build more off of this character? Or why not have us play off of freaking Commander Kim? You know, the guy who was originally the leader of the Delta Squad in the first place. Or like I said, Jace, or heck, why not give us sections to play as all of them? Now, granted, okay, as a DLC campaign, it's a lot shorter, so maybe they wanted to focus on one character.
There we go.
How fitting that the one character we play as will pretty much never be brought up again.
That's also the other thing, Bojo. I remember, for basically, aside from the beginning of Gears 3, for practically most of the original trilogy, we do play as Marcus, but that doesn't stop the rest of the Delta Squad to have a pretty, at the very least, good banter. I wouldn't say characterization because Cole is the one who gets the most of it at the beginning of 3, but the other members do manage to be fleshed out, at least in some capacity. So the idea of having a character being playable is not exactly the issue for this case. It's simply put, put more banter, put more dialogue, showcase to me what the humor and personality of these characters are.
And why should we care?
Necessarily make me play as them. You know.
It is so jarring that what is
Oh,
arguably definitely the best game in the franchise has this black spot on its
Well-
experience. Well, again, okay, it's probably more fun. It's probably more fun to play than it is to watch. So there's that. It's just it's a shame to not see it nail the full package.
Once again, I do generally believe that for Epic Games this was nothing more than an experiment than anything. They see it didn't work, and they never did it again, and the coalition basically followed suit.
Sadly, too, what you're seeing right now is a taste of what's to come, because Gears of War Judgment is basically more of this.
What I mean, well, yeah, but what I mean when it is, DLC episode format with a short story. Sure, you can tell me that the characters in 4 and 5 in Judgment are bland, but those at least are full campaign, not just,
Oh, no, sure.
simple DLC package.
No, I get what you're saying too. That's the thing too. That my problem with Gears 4's character is not so much. Blandness is a factor. I will, but it's more so the fact that the dialogue goes beyond being bland. It just goes into lame territory in general. Even when the game tries to have humor, because unlike this DLC, the game Gears 4 tries to have humor. To banterous humor between the characters.
Be hip.
The problem is that the comedic writing in that game sucks.
Let me put it this to you. To sum up Gears 4, hello, fellow kids, how do you do? That
Great.
is pretty much what you can expect for Gears of War 4.
Anyway, ending.
By the way,
Thank you.
Alicia's dead.
Oh, no,
He gets the contact.
and all the souls I have encountered in my travels.
His was
She-
the,
hers
she,
was-
Hers
hers
was
was
the
one.
most
Latina. It's the only trait she
Her-
has.
She was definitely a soul, and that's
See,
the
the
most I can say.
prof and the others are
Yeah, and you know
alive.
what's also the sad part, guys? Look at this. This is a really awesome climax in terms of visuals and set piece terms.
It is.
If we could have, if
Wait,
only
they censored the beach part?
in a
And yet he still says it out loud.
the subtitles in this in the subtitles in Gears 3 are censored too.
Even though they say the words out loud.
I tried to look at the options and I couldn't find anything involving turning off any kind of censorship. Gears 4 and 5 have that. They have a censorship thing that you can turn off.
Hey, Raam.
Are you still alive?
Basi-
I have no idea.
Whatever, we know.
I am alive because
We know
Gears
both
1
of these
demands
characters
it.
are alive, so this conflict is pointless.
Yeah, and so is Kim. Yeah,
Wait,
this
wait.
conflict is pointless because we know both of them live.
Guys. This cutscene is to establish the rivalry those two will have.
That's the thing.
Which will be concluded in a very pathetic way for Kim.
Exactly. Like, it just comes across as the whatever. But that's the thing, Teo. Like, if only we could have had characters that we were invested in to make this set piece all the way engaging. Oh, and by the way, here's the final thing. There you go.
They need a lighter.
This is
from
Jace's
Jace.
big contribution to this entire thing. He lights
Jace,
up.
no,
he-
Lighting a cigar.
Jace,
Yes.
Not for nothing, but in many countries this is inferred as, sexual acts, invitation.
And there you go, guys. The primary thing we got out of this, apparently, is that now
Jace is gonna become a gear.
we now know how Jace got inducted into the COG. So there you go. That was
A
it.
cigar.
We my 10 euros totally well spent. Thanks, Coalition. Sorry, thanks, Epic
You
Games.
know-
Thanks.
You know, a lot of people around here like
Also
other
the streets for
people's
rent.
cigars. Of that, how come they're not inducted into a
But
militia?
actually, that made me think about something. Considering also we were talking about characters being resurrected in sequels with potentially bad explanations attached to it. Why not? The last thing we see about Raam after we kill him in the first game, and this was a thing that was also in the first original version of the game, not even the Ultimate Edition, is the fact that he's dumped along with the train and the lineman bomb into the immersion. Why no one has ever thought about bringing Raam back as a, I forgot the name
Lambent?
already. As one of those. you know.
I guess the idea was like, well, he was dead, and we figured, okay. I get the feeling that Raam was at a stage where, they didn't predict how popular he would be, but, they didn't want to sort of cheapen his death by just bringing him back in a cheap way after, we kind of killed him in quite a brutal way.
It truly is like Selvaria Blessing, Valkyria Chronicles, which, come to think of it, there are some similarities too, because Valkyria Chronicles 3 is a prequel to the first game, which also involves prevalently Selvaria as the antagonist. So in a way, it's very similar to this DLC campaign, though I argue it has better writing. Even though I like the
So yeah, that was the Raam's Shadow DLC. It's a thing that exists.
Okay, I'll just get this out of the way. The parts where you play as Raam are probably the best, well, maybe the most creative as well sections of this campaign here. I'll just say it right now, they should have done better to center this around Raam. Like, we could have done either Tia's suggestion, spend most of the campaign playing as the Gears, but then for the last act, play as Raam decimating them. Or just have us play as Raam the full way through, or do a better job at tying in the two playstyles and giving Raam more playtime as well. All of a sudden, though, in any of the cases, I do feel like this should have ended with us playing as Raam at the very least.
Like, the big problem with this DLC is how okay, again, like we've talked about, and Jova brought this up various times. Yeah, yes, gameplay-wise, this is perfectly sound. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just, again, the same game you've been playing in the main campaign, and that's perfectly fine.
If gameplay is what you're looking for, then yeah, your money will be well spent.
The thing is, the whole play as Raam thing was one of the selling points, and you only play as him for 2 short sections. And you're not really doing all that much. And like Jova said, we don't even get to see Raam make some kind of big... Wouldn't it be so cool to, like Teo said, like instead of having them survive, have Mike or...
What's this music?
It's music. Remember how awesome, incredibly intimidating and ominous and threatening Kim's death was in Gears of War 1? How about have us be able to actively do that as playing as Raam? Something cool, something awesome that way. Think of it as like the dark equivalent of Marcus stabbing the Locust Queen. It's just, that would be a cool way for us to, like really, and again, it would have been it would have given this DLC more of an edge, and make it more memorable. Like, this is just such a complete unmemorable mini campaign because, yes, of course, the gameplay is perfectly sound. It's just that from a character standpoint, I so do not care, It just comes across like, yes, more gameplay is nice, I guess, but I don't know, like, I just don't feel like the trade-off was good enough. I feel like I wanted, at the very least, to give some kind of a shit about what's going on, I did for the main campaign. I kind of expected the same from the same development team, but whatever. I guess that this really was at the point where the original developers were genuinely kind of done, and this was basically just kind of something that they needed to get made because maybe Microsoft demanded it. I don't know. But yeah, I really wish, in hindsight, I really wish this would have been the true ending of Gears, but whatever. That's a topic for another day. At the end of the day, this DLC is perfectly serviceable as a piece of gameplay DLC, but if you want to some world building, some kind of introduction to new characters, or some kind of extra development for existing characters, you're out of luck, because Ty is here, but he does jack shit in this DLC. I don't even remember any lines he had. He maybe had like one line in this entire thing. Kim is just there. Alicia is there to die. And
oh my god, do you think Kate was supposedly the Gears franchise's way of trying to make it up to Laura Bailey?
Oh, not just that. Yeah, okay. It's weird because until this point, the female, there was literally nothing wrong with how they treated female characters. But yeah, now when I think about it, Alicia is just there to die at the end, and she's the only casualty. I could swear Mutton Chops would have died as well, but no.
Well, Tio, Mutton Chops is the playable
It does.
character.
So, well, Jova, that would have been the cue for what you suggested, to switch to play as someone else.
I
It
can
would have
see.
been cool, yeah.
I can see what you mean, Joe. Because remember, her name is Kate Diaz. She's also of the
Latino.
she's also of Latino descent. So, yeah. Yeah, this is a thing that exists, and that's the best way I can put it when describing this thing. Because if you want some more world buildings, filling in some holes, filling in some kind of anything, you're out of luck. Because this DLC is completely uninteresting on that front.
Oh, you didn't even wait for the credits to end.
No, that's the thing, Teo. The credits... did I? Oh yeah, what I did is, Teo, I think what I did is after we gotten through the developer's comment aspect, that's the thing, Teo. The credits are just the same thing, the same credits from the original campaign. And we got through all the important stuff for what's in here anyway, so don't worry, trust me, you didn't really miss anything.
Sure.
This is a thing that exists too.
It's not bad, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm not impressed. If there's anything, that has to be said about that. I already mentioned constantly through the rest of the trilogy what I think of the gameplay, so the thing still applies here because it's technically more of the same. The only exception being how do you play as Raam. It has an interesting variation of the moveset, but it's only limited. It should have been expanded a bit more. There are some potential, but it's clear that this was still experimental in some kind of way. I haven't seen multiplayer matches that involve the skin of a character, so I don't know if it plays like this just in a nerfed version here, or it's just another skin for a character with a gun. But still, what I mentioned also throughout this DLC applies. It would have been so cool to have the previous section playing as Raam be foreshadowing for the eventual twist at the end. The characters that you also played, during the DLC will be the sacrificial lamb towards the badass, fan favorite enemy character to establish how much of a dick he is, and that's how he rolls. But no. Instead, we have Mutton Chops calling the shots in a very, very boring way. Yeah, Tai doesn't have that many lines. Kim has like a sparkle or something potentially at the end, but it's just that. It's not enough to light a fire, just a spark. Alicia is there just to die. That's nice, I guess. And who else is it? Oh, Jace. Yeah, origin story for Jace. Not sure if I care that much, especially
that's the thing, Tio. When you think about it, this whole thing revolves more around Jace than it does the other.
True, but there's also the fact that I'm taken out by the scene that I mentioned before, where Jace, without a clog armor, without training, without a muscular build, is perfectly able to pick up an actual lancer and fire it like it's nothing. And
meanwhile, the trained guard with a helmet and body armor on is the one who gets shot dead.
Well, I'm not talking specifically about that, Joe. I'm talking about, actually being able to lift up and fire a firearm. The Lancer is a massive thing. And again, I'm using Warhammer 40k logic. It's a weapon designed for bulky people in that kind of suit of armor that Kogat is specifically designed to be this big. A kid like Jace should not be able to pick up. Give him a pistol. That actually would make more sense, especially since he's also untrained. Hell, making an entire plot point of him having to come up and learning fast how to play with firearms. But no, rushed anything. So yeah, it confirms what I thought. This DLC was just experimental for the sake of it, and the publicity for the multiplayer. That's it. Next.
Can I go next?
Go ahead.
Sure.
Well, honestly, there's not really much here for me to talk about. I mean, the gameplay's still the same, but from what I can tell at least. But the story is just a bunch of nameless rogues, and that's the interesting me saying nameless because I know they have names, but they're so unmemorable. I just call them by what little character traits they have. And I don't even know if I can call half of them character traits. There's Beardy. There's
Go ahead and finish.
There's woman. What other traits does she have?
Allow me to ask you a question, Webs.
She dies.
Yeah, exactly. A character trait is that she dies. Yes, Pedro?
Let me ask you a question. So what you're telling me is that you kind of miss Marcus and his gang right now. Get used to that feeling, Dwips, because that's how the Gears fan base has been feeling for a long time now. Get used to that. Get used to that feeling.
I'm willing to bet it's not necessarily the fact that there are new characters in the games, is that those new characters are also not very interesting.
Well, I'll let you be the judge of that. But let's just
they actually ruined some of their own characters.
Okay,
Well,
maybe ruin is too
more.
strong a word. It's just that Cole is not even written like Cole in any way, shape, or form. It's Cole on horse tranquilizers, and that's something that I do not want at all.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Web. Sorry, go ahead and finish.
As for the others, there's that one guy who comes back later on and makes just as much an impact there as he does here.
Mm-hmm.
I.e., none. There's I think that's it. I think one of them's only famous for being shot in the head randomly and that. And the story is for what story? It's just a bunch of characters going somewhere. They stay there for a bit, and then they fuck off in a helicopter.
That's just the thing, Dibs. Like I've said before, these games are not supposed to be so much about interesting stories, because none of the stories in these games are interesting when you break them down. It's the reason we like the first 3 Gears games, the main campaigns at least, is because the characters are cool, and they carry the freaking thing. The characters in this DLC are boring as shit, so there's nothing for you to latch on, you know?
And they're not even complemented by a different type of gameplay that will make you distract from that.
It's the same thing as Expendables. When you I'm sorry.
A lot of these characters literally have less character than Raam, the guy who spends most of the game grunting. Like, he has more backstory and more that we know about him than we do about the likes of Alicia or Mike.
Let's take Expendables 2. Expendables 2 story is literally the most generic revenge plot you can think of. But nobody gives a crap because the characters are so freaking cool, and you get to watch them do cool, badass things, and that's what you want. The same thing applies here. But there's no badassery of any kind in this bloody DLC.
Except for when you play as Raam, like I said,
and even that badassery is extremely limited, like Teo said.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Liz.
That's about it. The story's uninteresting. The only defining character traits I can come up with for some of the characters is whether or not they have a beard or not.
Exactly.
And that's not a character trait. That's a beard. I mean, unless there's a character that I'm unaware of where their beard is an important.
Well, there is okay. There's the legend of Samson and how his strength was sapped when his hair was cut. But that's more of a Bible story. So,
what you're talking about, Jova? That's what happens in the first episode of the Donkey Kong Country cartoon.
And technically, there's Commander Riker from the Star Trek Next Generation, where the show was only really considered to be improving when he grew a beard in season 2.
Hence the TV show growing the beard.
Well, discounting the horrible finale of season 2. But that's about it. That's all I've got.
All right, Jova, close us out.
Well, that was certainly a DLC campaign. Okay, I just want to make it clear, it didn't ruin the whole experience for me. Like, Gears 3 is still, if you ask me, the best Gears game there is.
That's unquestionable.
And like I said, this DLC campaign, compared to a lot of DLC campaigns of the time, is a lot better. It's just it could have been so much better. It's frustrating. Like, they had something going really good for them with the Raam gameplay, but then they just stopped short. And then story-wise, they had something interesting going with them, showing the origins of Jace, or how almost anything, but no, it's just these guys dealing with whatever they have to deal with. You have this melancholy bearded guy who you play as, and I'll be quite honest, don't really care for him as a character. I mean, his attitude certainly doesn't help with the whole... Okay, look. You can do a character who has a downer attitude or such, but that character needs to be fleshed out so that they don't just come off as whining for the sake of whining. Now, I know, circumstances being how they are, you could infer that from this he had a crappy lifestyle here and there. Don't know enough about him to care. Alicia is literally the definition of character who's there just to die, so new character can join the squad in her place, essentially. Ty and Kim are cool, but we don't get to know more about them here. Again, we know more about Raam than we do most of these characters. I'm going to say it right now, the most ironic thing is that the person who comes out of this with the most fleshing out is Jace of all characters. Like, congrats, I guess we got our backstory about Jace.
Tail brought up a good suggestion that I think would have been a far better concept for this entire bloody thing. How about...
As Jace?
I guess that could potentially be a good thing if they had a good idea for making Jace an interesting character. But personally, I would have preferred to just play as Raam for the whole bloody DLC and have the DLC focus on the Locust, and that way we can see things from their perspective. Wouldn't that be more interesting?
Can agree.
Like it would have been a cool way to get us even more invested in Raam as one of the iconic villains of this franchise, and also would allow us to really get a good grasp and insight on the Locust and how exactly and what are their ulterior motivation. Like we're going to learn in Gears 5 why the Queen even started the Locust Horde to begin with, but I just wish we could have had a little bit more insight into the Locust and how the Horde works in general. Just like you have this gold mine right here sitting in front of you, and instead you just have to focus on these boring ass characters that are so lackluster compared to the Delta Squad. It's not even funny. And trust me, I'm gonna be saying that a lot from this point on in these commentaries. Just go ahead.
Oh boy. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Gameplay wise, it is perfectly serviceable on both ends here. It's a DLC campaign where you wish that there was more to it. Not in the sense like, well, there needed to be more, but more like, well, in that they had planned it out and mapped it out a lot more and better here and there.
You guys have more knowledge of Halo than I do. Jova actually knows what happens in the Coalition's Gears. Would you say it's as bad as when they replaced Master Chief with Locke?
Oh, wait. Are you talking about like Gears 4 and 5?
Well, the whole post Gears 3 thing, Because I know that Locke is basically the Kate of the Halo franchise, that one character that basically took the spotlight and nobody cared for, basically.
It is really debatable. On the one hand, you could argue that Locke's a more tolerable character than Cade. On the other hand, you've got the whole thing where the story of Gears 5 makes it that Master Chief is supposedly the bad guy, and Locke's the one chosen one who can take him down. Totally. So, it's a tough call, really.
Alright, continue.
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, okay. Was it enough to ruin my experience with the game? No. And honestly, I do say that it's not even a terrible DLC campaign. It's just one that has a lot of wasted potential here.
Here's what you do, everybody. Play the main campaign and play the multiplayer. Don't bother with the DLC campaign. It's not. Even if you really want to try out Raam, trust me, it's not that interesting. Trust me. Like, unless you really want the multiplayer packs that come with this package that comes with that includes Raam's Shadow, you might want to consider saving your $10 for something else. It's not that the gameplay is just more of the same. So trust me, it's not that interesting if you ask me. But whatever. If you still if you're listening to this, you already know if you like the story or not. So I guess it's pointless. Never mind. Anyway, all right, everybody. So we're officially done with Gears of War 3. So we know what that means. It's time to start. It's time to start. It's time to start the Tom Bissell era of Gears of War. That's right. From this point on, everybody, Tom Bissell takes over as the lead writer of the Gears series. And let's just say Gears of War will never be the same ever again. That's
in the worst way possible.
From what I'm hearing, it's not like Bissell's going to be the only guy to blame, considering he had people still there who should have known better. But
I know, Dibs. Rod Ferguson is for Judgment, it's a different thing. For Judgment, I forgot who was in the creative head of Judgment, but for the Coalition, Rod is the primary culprit because he's the one in charge of it all. But the Tom Bissell is the one common link between Judgment and the Coalition's game. So he's the one primary key person that's involved in both Judgment and the Coalition's game. So I went with Tom Bissell as the name for the era. Because Rod Ferguson, if I remember correctly, was not involved with Gears of Judgment, I think. I'll have to look it up, but I don't think he was involved in Gears of War Judgment. But anyway, tune in for Gears of War Judgment, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.